when setting up a cancer center, and as Dr. Nyongesa put it, firstly you need to define the scope of service and the size of the facility. And this is defined by understanding the different modalities involved in treatment of cancer. Of course, there are various, and they involve various equipments. We have modalities that involve X-rays and high energy beams, and we have other modalities that involve use of sources, injecting the patient with the source, and some modalities that involve a combination of both. And so each modality is unique and for a particular occasion. I've grouped them to what I call diagnostic image and treatment modalities, and we have what I'm calling the inpatient treatment modalities. These are, say, chemotherapy or patient counseling, which actually don't involve much of equipment. So the modalities will not be functional by themselves. You need again to be able to identify what we call the ancillary facilities. These are the services to support the running of the main or rather the core functions of that center. For example, if your center for radiotherapy treatment perhaps have the linear accelerator, then of course you need now the other support services to enable the functioning of the linear accelerator. And just to mention but a few, you may want to have patient preparation rooms, dressing rooms, treatment planning areas, pharmacy, laboratory, and many others, including your staff. Okay? So once you have defined the scope of project or center that you want to have, the next step will be to identify a site, a location to set up the facility. Your location, or rather your site, may be an existing building, an office block, that you convert to actually house a treatment center, or rather treatment facility. Or you can actually opt to go for a land somewhere that is either developed or not, so that you develop your facility. And of course, there are various factors that again will influence the choice of site that you go for. The size of land should actually now correspond to the size of facility that you want to set up. We have things like the setting of that site. If you going for a site that is difficult to access, for example, that may inhibit accessibility of your patients. Other factors that you want to consider, again going by the choice of treatment modalities that you want to set up, matters to do with safety. This will dictate whether your facility can be within perhaps a residential setting or a commercial setting, or altogether away from both. Okay? The topography, that's the nature of the land, which may work for you or against you. If you have, if you're going for a modality that involves, for example, emission of high energy beams, which will then necessitate for shielding, the slope of land can work for you if it incorporated. So, but all these decisions, the assumption is that you will have a professional that is working along with you in your dream and to actualize it. So once the site is selected, then the next step will be to implement on targets, where you want to achieve what and at what time and what it involves, costs, all that. And then you also need the appropriate documentation to realize the facility. And the documentation is various. First, we will have the design drawings, and the design drawings coming from multi-scope of disciplinary. These are architectural drawings, structural drawings to support the structure of the building. You have the services drawings coming from the electrical and your mechanical engineers, and the cost aspects, the bills of quantities. These are the core information that you really need to have at that point. But then design of the facility involves much more than what I'm mentioning, because it's a process for the architect to realize the design. We have to relate the various aspects involved so that you have a functional facility. Taking into account, for instance, is that you should have an understanding of the equipment and the nature of the equipment, their critical dimensions, how they function, how they are operated, because the operator and the patient are the actual people involved, or rather the end users of the facility. You need to take budget considerations into account. Are you going to face your project, your facility, or not, based on your targets? You need to take the environmental issues into account. Things like simple things, natural lighting and ventilation. You don't want the facility to be expensive to maintain. You try as much as possible to cut down on the running costs, choice of material, and that goes as far as actually having an understanding of the availability of the material, okay, vis-a-vis the requirements of the facility. You will also need information from the manufacturers of the facilities, because most of the manufacturers will actually document this part of the region that you need to seek approval from the local authorities for the construction licenses. And once that is obtained, the next phase will be the actual construction of the facility. And this now is a very exciting stage in your dream, because now you get to involve much more people than you were working with initially. So it's usually what we call the construction team. The construction team is mainly made of the consultants and the contractors, the ones executing the works. So just to mention but a few, is that you will need a project manager. Maybe this will have to come early in the project so that you work together. The project manager is essentially your representative to the design team, the one who understands your need, your budgets, and constraints, and the project timelines. So he is the lead consultant, and sometimes where you don't have this, the architect doubles up as such. The other consultants, as Dr. had put up on the slide, have the quantity surveyors to monitor the cost aspects of the project. You have the structural engineer to ensure that the bunkers we are putting up will actually hold, and then the services engineers, as I said, for data information, electrical information, plumbing services, water, all these aspects. Then you will also have, depending with the scope of your project, other consultants. Maybe you have an equipment installation consultant. Sometimes you want the actual manufacturers or suppliers of equipment to undertake the actual installation works. And then we also need their input during the construction phase so that things fall in place properly when it comes to installation. Then you also have the landscaping consultant to ensure that once the facility is put up, the environment is nice, it can accommodate people, there's an area where patients can relax outdoors, with privacy, breathe fresh air, and all these aspects. So that was as far as the consultants are concerned. The contractors, the actual guys to undertake the work, we normally will have the main contractor, the one who is obligated to ensure that the facility is built as part of the program. So he will not undertake all the works by himself. He will normally have other specialized contractors working with him, and these are the guys putting together the services. We call them perhaps the electrical subcontractor or mechanical subcontractor. You will have specialists, the guys doing say fit outs. For example, this kind of finish is a skill that people take time to develop and perfect. So not everyone can do that. So you have such people in a construction team. So these two teams that specify for this area, do this and do that. We also have bills of quantities that detail out the material quantities plus the survey's costs, cost matters. And we also have schedules, because there may be components in the construction works that require more information or specific information. So then we go for what we call schedules. For example, if you're doing a linear generator with a door that has to be shielded, that drawing has to be very detailed and very specific. And of course, we'll have the equipment manuals as well. So once you are done with the construction phase and you're convinced that the facility is ready for operations, first is that we have to inspect and issue certificates that attest to the structural soundness of the facility and the quality as such of materials and service lines, among other aspects. We also need to obtain the operational licenses from the various regulatory agencies. If it's a cancer treatment facility, in this setting, you'll be dealing with the Nairobi City, the Nairobi County Council, the Radiation Protection Board, among others. And then, of course, a brief presentation on financial matters involved in setting up a cancer treatment facility. I'm sure he will base much of his presentation on our experience, but maybe what we want to stress is that these things are doable. We just need to take up the initiative.